Thank you all for coming. I'm really touched that so many people are here. And I really hope that this talk helps you as much as it's helped me. I can't believe how much it's helped me. Although when Becca asked me to do it via Ingen, you didn't ask me to do it, you asked for a volunteer. I volunteered and I just knew it was the right thing. I just said, oh yeah, I'll do it. And it just felt right, it felt absolutely the right thing. And it still does now, actually. All my fear has gone, thank God. Because I was feeling, this week I've been quite scared really, but I don't know why, because... So this talk is about what brought me to Zen. And there's something telling me, a few things that have been happening that are sort of telling me, perhaps, that I mightn't use these notes as much as I think I'm going to. Because I'll tell you the few things I've happened. I've been writing this for a few weeks now, really. And I've got 3 copies here, actually, of what I've written. So if one happens to go, I've got another one. And if that goes, I've got another one. So I've got a lot of backup. But when I came to write my final version, which was about, I can't remember when it was really, but whenever it was, every pen in the house wouldn't work. I was writing and the pen ran out. So then I got another pen and that ran out. And it just went on not for like 10 pens. And I looked through, it was a bit like when you're looking for some money. I was looking through every single bag for a pen. And I couldn't find any more pens. And I was thinking, no, I'm going to get a pen. So I went out and I bought some new pens. But actually, I very much like pens. So anyway, so I've got some new pens now. Nothing else comes from it. I've got some new pens. So anyway, So anyway, if I do go by my script, I'm going to organise the talk. Well, my original idea was to organise the talk around the 16 precepts. And then I realised I didn't have 3 weeks. I've only got 40 minutes. So if we even get through 6, then we'll be doing well. And we'll just see how it goes. So anyway, I'm going to start with my background. I'm going to start from the beginning, actually. So I'm going to start with I'm going to start with my dad. So just sort of put my life into context, really. So my dad had an interesting, his story is quite interesting, really, because he was a black man born into a white family. And it's been like a family story, really, and I'm not sure how much of it's true. You know, I mean, it's just what I've been told. Not even by my mum, because my mum would never even speak about my dad. She hated him. So she'd never tell me anything, but other family members have told me this story. So the story goes that my granddad was at sea, was a seaman. And while he was at sea, my grandma had an affair with an Afro-Caribbean man. And then when my granddad came back home from sea, my grandma tried to tell my granddad that the pregnancy, the baby was his. But when the baby was born, he was black. So, and it was I don't know how long, it wouldn't be the 60s, it would be I don't know, it was a long time ago anyway, when that wasn't acceptable. So, unfortunately then, my dad was rejected from the family because the big secret was out, because he was different coloured from his dad and his mum. So, and his sister was also white. So, he was rejected, and he was sent to a number of foster homes throughout his childhood, so the story goes. And he ended up with very, very severe mental health problems because of all this rejection and all the stuff that happened. So that's sort of in a nutshell his background. And then my mum, she came from a family that was, her dad was very violent to my nan, and to my mum. Well, I think to my mum, although my mum's completely blocked it all out and has got no memory of it, but just from other members of the family and things that have happened really, I think it was the violence was also towards my mum and her sisters and brother. So, and my granddad came over from Ireland in the with his family when he was a child in the when the potato famine. So I guess that was very traumatic. So, and I didn't know my granddad very well. He died when I was quite young, but anyway, he was very violent when he was alive. So then my mum and dad met when they were both 17, and my mum got pregnant with me straight away after they met. So so they got married at 18. So and they got married, and then they had me in 1964. My mum had me, and I was born in 1963. I was born in 1963, and when my mum was in labour for 2 days, and she had a very, very difficult labour. And the doctors and the nurse didn't know that she was in labour, so I was just left in the room. Apparently, again, obviously I don't remember it. I've just been told all these stories. So, so when I was born, there was a lot of damage that I've still got a curvature of the spine. All my difficulties are on the right hand side due to this really difficult birth. So I've got a curvature of the spine. I'm deaf, completely deaf in my right ear, and I've also got a problem with my jaw, in that my jaw doesn't go from side to side. It's like stuck on the right hand side. So when I was born, the doctors thought that I was brain damaged because I couldn't eat, and that of course is one of the basic instincts of a child and a baby. So so they thought that I was brain damaged. And then I was kept in hospital for the first year of my life. And I was fed through a tube and all the rest of it. And there's quite a funny story that my mum tells me, that it was a nurse that realised that I wasn't brain damaged, because I used to cry all the time when it was time to be fed. So not much has changed, because I still really listen to my stomach. So so this nurse apparently convinced all the doctors that I wasn't brain damaged, because I wouldn't have cried like that when I was hungry, you know. So it's obviously just, they then realised it was like a mechanical problem with my jaw. And then they got specialists in and taught me to eat, to feed. So anyway, so I was left in the hospital for the first year, and I think I was moved from a local hospital to a hospital further away. And so my mum could, in those days, which was 60s, parents weren't allowed to stay in the hospital overnight like they are now. So I was just left in the hospital, and my mum visited periodically, but I don't know how often. I just don't know. But I know she said she couldn't visit very often because she had to get 2 buses and she had 2 jobs, and my dad wouldn't visit because of what I'm going to say later on. So I don't think I had many visitors. So I think that was a problem really. That's been a problem through my life. That's fed into my life really, you know, because as a little baby you can't rationalise that you're not that your mum isn't there and all the rest of it. So that sort of caused me problems throughout my life really. So that was that. So that was the first year, and then after the first year, when I was feeding, when they realised I could feed, they sent me home, which should have been a good thing, you would have thought. But it was in the house with my mum and dad. There was a lot of violence. I witnessed a lot of violence with my dad towards my mum. So it was very, very chaotic and very, very unsafe, really unsafe. And this isn't written down, but it came to me when I was sitting, this story. So I think I'm going to share it with you, because I think the what came to me when I was sitting was that the sort of the whole thing about meditation, about meditation really, is about being true to yourself. I think that's perhaps, for me, it's the bottom line. So anyway, so just going back to the story for a minute, we left in a very violent way. We left my dad when I was 5 and my sister was 3. And we left and we went to live with my nan. Right. And this is the stories I'm going to share that isn't on this paper. I hadn't written down. I didn't realise I was going to share it, but it just came to me. And I just think it sort of sums up Zen, meditation and what we're trying to do. So when we went to live with my nan, apparently my mum, like this happens a lot in violent relationships, my dad used to come round. He used to do it a lot, and my mum used to go and live with me now and take us, the kids. And then he'd come round, my dad, and plead for us to go back, and he'd say, oh, I'll never do it again. And, and this is a pattern, as you probably know. Anyway, this day I was 5. And this day we were in my nan's, what we used to call the parlour, which is where, like, the posh room in the house. We were in there, and me and my mum were in there. And my dad came round, and my mum was all black and blue, and he really nearly killed her, basically. She could have been dead now, really. So she was all black and blue, and I was in there, and I was 5, I say. And he came round, and he sat down, and he said to my mum, oh, what's happened to you? What's on, why are you so beat up? And she said, well, that was you, Anyway, he said, no. I know we had an argument, but I'd never do that. So, anyway, so he said, I want you to come back. I said to my mum, I want you to come back. And my mum said, no, I'm not coming back this time. So then he, apparently, I don't remember it, this is family story, he turned to me and he said, you want to come back, Trace, don't you? Because all your friends in the road, you've got all your little friends in the road and you want to be back with all your friends. And apparently, I ran across the room and I flung myself at my mum. And I said, I don't want my mum to be hurt anymore. And that was a 5-year-old. And it just struck me while I was sitting. Because then what happened apparently then is, my mum said that she'd never seen my dad look guilty in his eyes. He never admitted that it was him who was doing all this violence and damage. Until that moment. And she said she saw shame in his eyes. And she said, and he got up and he just shamefully walked out the room and never came back. And we just, we stayed with my nan for a number of years, and my mum never got back. But she could have been killed in that relationship. It was that bad, he was really, really, really violent. So I think that's about truth, really, isn't it? About us telling the truth, our truth. And, a 5-year-old can do it. but then things happen in your life and we can easily close down, which is what the rest of the story is about a little bit, some of it. So, anyway, so get back to me thing. So we lived, that's right. So we lived with my nan for another, and we lived in a, there was me and my sister and my mum, and my nan, and my auntie, and her daughter. So there were 6 of us in a little two down house. And we were really safe and we were really happy in a way. Well, it was a safe place. But I wasn't happy, and now looking back, I'm not surprised really with all the trauma I've been through with my birth and then the violence, and then my mum, my nan and my auntie were just trying to survive. They were, they were all working and trying to bring up 3 kids. So they were all working really hard to bring us up. So I can sort of now as an adult see that they really loved us and loved me. But I couldn't feel that in his act because I think I was so traumatised by everything else that had happened. I was very shut down, very sullen. I always wanted to run away. I was thinking while I was writing this. I always wanted to run away, and because I was the oldest, I was left. Sometimes I was left to look after the younger kids. So, but then when I was left, I used to go to the library and read because I wanted some peace and quiet. And then I get into trouble then when my mum came home and I wasn't there when I was supposed to be looking after the kids. So I was always in trouble. I was always in trouble. And my dad had been a musician, so I really always loved music. And because we lived in Liverpool, the Orange Lodge used to go at the end of our road. There used to be a band, and they used to go play every Saturday afternoon or Sunday. And they used to go past the end of our road. And because I wanted to run away, and because I love music, I used to follow the band, and I used to follow them for miles. And then my mum used to come and get me, because she was by some point she realised we'd have gone, because it'd be like Saturday afternoon or whatever, and Tracy's disappeared. Well, she's gone with the band, so they'd come and get me and tell me off. So anyway, so it was very safe, and there was a lot of love in my nan's, but some of it I didn't feel because I was so damaged really by the earlier stuff. Anyway, so at when I was 13, my mum remarried, and we moved out of my nan's, and things sort of settled down really and became quite normal. So I'm going to go on to, what's that? Oh yeah, that's on. Yeah. So I'm going to go on to now you've got the background, I'm going to go on to the Buddhist path and how I stumbled across it. And as I'm going to, thank you. As I've decided to do the first 6 precepts, sort of organise it around the first 6 precepts. I thought I'd read them out to you, but I'm going to read out the 16. But as I say, I've only got time to perhaps go through the first 6. So the first 3 are called the 3 refuges, and they're that we take refuge in the Buddha, refuge in the Dharma, and refuge in the Sangha. And then the next 3 are called the 3 pure precepts, and they are to refrain from harmful conduct, to cultivate beneficial conduct, and to benefit all beings. And then the 10 precepts that I'm not going to go into today are to protect life or not to kill. There's like 2 ways of saying it. To receive gifts or not to steal. To respect others or not to misuse sexuality. To be truthful, not to lie. To remain clear, not to intoxicate self or others. To speak kindly and not to speak ill of others. To practice modesty and not to praise self over others. And to practice generosity and not be possessive. And to practice loving kindness and not harbour ill will. And to cherish the 3 treasures, which are the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha. So they're the 16 precepts. So I'll start with the first one. Right. So most of me reading, because as I said before, I used to go to the library, so I like reading a lot. You know, and actually I could actually just read and not sit. You know, if I get away with that. If I didn't have a Sangha to stop me doing that, then I would definitely do that. You know, but that's a little bit like reading about swimming and not swimming. So. But anyway, I'll start with the easy one. It's taking refuge in the Buddha. Yes, so most of my reading was from Reb's book, which is called, I've forgotten what it's called now. Upright. Being upright. Yeah, the Reb's book, Being Upright. It's a very good book about precepts if anyone's interested in reading it. So I usually start with a little bit of some quote that has sort of struck me, and then I'll talk about it in the context of my life, rather than just rambling on about my life, really. So, taking refuge in the Buddha. haven't got a quote for this one. Sorry, I built you up and then let you down. So anyway, taking refuge in the Buddha. Let me just have a look. Yeah, I've got a quote. It says, living with the realisation that we are all connected, we share air, water and life with each other and could not exist without this interconnection. Yeah, it's from Reb, being upright. Right. So, how does this reflect in my life? So before I found spiritual practice, I was quite isolated. So I'm sort of going on to my 20s now, really. So I was quite isolated. I didn't have many friends, and I was very negative about myself and others. I didn't trust anyone, that was the main thing. I didn't trust myself. I had loads of internalised negative views about myself, and I definitely didn't trust others. I was really angry, impatient most of the time. Not all the time, most of the time. More than I am these days. And I couldn't give or receive affection. And mainly, I think this is quite important, I couldn't remember the past. All the stuff I've just told you, I couldn't remember any of that. I didn't know any of that had happened at this time in my 20s before I found spiritual practice. So where this goes in with the quote is that basically I didn't feel that interconnection with other people. I felt totally disconnected. And of course, because I felt disconnected, I was disconnected because that's what I was projecting out onto the world. I didn't trust anyone, didn't want anyone to come near me. So that's what I was getting back. People would sense that I didn't want anyone near me, so they'd stay away. So it was like a vicious circle. I just get more and more isolated, more and more angry. So it was just, I was on a downward spiral. But I hid it all very well. I had a very responsible job, and and I hid it from myself, actually. I didn't even realise it was all going on myself. And I just sort of got on with my life without all the knowledge of what had happened in the past, and without really feeling all these feelings, but they were there inside, And it was my behaviour. I didn't really trust anyone, didn't confide in anyone. I was just very, very isolated, really, and lonely, very lonely. So I didn't feel this connection. Anyway, mainly for a physical reason, really, I started to do my spiritual path. We're getting the spiritual path now, which reminds me I should keep an eye on the time. What time do you need to finish? Okay. So, my spiritual practice started with yoga. And that was mainly, in my mind, it was mainly because I had my back. It was mainly because of a physical problem, because I was a nurse. And I had this problem. I already had a problem with my back. And then the nursing didn't make it any better. It made it worse. So I started doing yoga. And the yoga, I had a really lovely yoga teacher. I remember him. I remember in Liverpool. And what used to happen in the yoga lesson, is I started to get in touch with my body, with my feelings, really. First of all, just the physical feelings in my body. And when I used to relax, in the relaxation bit, I used to get really panicky, and I used to feel like I used to have this overwhelming feeling of being trapped, and like I couldn't breathe. And I had a really lovely yoga teacher who used to come over and put his hands on my feet. And at that point in my life, I didn't want to, and I never used to like anyone to touch me, particularly men. I would not let a man, particularly, but even women, anyone, I wouldn't let anyone touch me. I just wanted everyone to just leave me alone. But this fella, I used to feel really reassured by him putting his hands on my feet, and it used to really calm me down. And that's all he did. He just put his hands on my feet. And then I did that yoga for a while, and it really helped. And then a friend of mine asked me, did I want to go and do a yoga teacher training course? And I said, no, it's not for me. But then when she mentioned what type of course it was, what type of yoga. It was the same yoga as this guy who would put his hands on my feet. So I said, so when she told me that, I said, oh yeah, I will go. So I went then and started training to be a yoga teacher. And it really helped. Anyway, so at that time, I used to have very, very volatile relationships. And I started doing yoga. And through all these panic attacks and things, I started getting some counselling because it was really, these panic attacks were really quite severe. So I started getting some counselling. And yeah, so I started to, all the memories started to come back from my childhood, the stuff, a lot more that I've told you, all that sort of stuff started to come back to me, all the memories came back. And I was amazed. And I started to realise what had happened and why I was behaving and feeling the way I was feeling. And I started to heal, really. I started to heal all this hurt, and childhood stuff. I mean, it took years and years and years. I had lots of years of counselling, but I started to heal. Oh yeah. So anyway, so going back to these friendships and relationships that were really chaotic. And this friend said to me, I said to this friend, I really just want some peace. I just feel like I need some peace in my life. And she repeated it to me and said, you say that a lot, you're always saying that. Why don't you go and do something that'll bring you some peace? So I decided to go on a meditation course. And it was in the same buildings where I used to do my yoga. And it was mainly visualizations. We used to do it was every Tuesday afternoon. And we used to do these visualizations. And I mainly used to sleep through them all the time. I used to fall asleep. And but this one day in particular, I thought I had a dream. I woke up and I'd had this dream, and I was just laughing my head off. Whatever was going on in my dream was making me really laugh. And I said to the teacher, oh, I had this dream and it really made me happy and I was really laughing. And she said, well, that's what meditation does. So I thought, I think I might have a bit more of this. So then I went to the Kadampa Centre in Liverpool. The Kadampa yoga is a different meditation. It's a certain type of meditation. And we used to, the way they sort of worked was they used to tell you stories about the Dharma. And then they used to ask you to meditate on them. So, Jackie, you've heard this story before. I'm going to tell you now. So, anyway, we learned this thing about do not take on the burden of riches, which is one of the Buddhist things, isn't it? So, we learned about that, and they told us all about it, and it was all about, the more riches you have, the more possessive you get, and you have to have locked doors. And they talked about doing the lottery, and when you do the lottery, you've got to go to the shop and buy your ticket, and then you've got to be in on a Saturday night to listen to the results, and so it takes a lot of energy, to just to put some numbers on the lottery, and so all these possessions, they were saying, are not a good thing because they just cause a lot of agitation in your mind. So it's not good to take on the burden of riches. So anyway, at this time I was a nurse, and about once a week we always used to go out for a drink after work. And I'd probably been to the Buddhist place the night before, and then the next night I was in work. The next day I was in work, and then we went for a drink, and we were all having a few drinks. And then I thought, no, I've got to get home. I can't afford a taxi home. I've got to drive home, so I best stop drinking. So I stopped drinking, and I said to my friends, I'm going to go and drive home. So I'm going to say goodnight. And they all carried on drinking. I was really reluctant to leave them. I wanted to carry on drinking, really. Anyway, so I went out, and I went to my car in the car park, and someone had broke into my car. And I went, to myself, like, probably out loud. So I thought, oh, that's fantastic. I can go back in the pub and get drunk. because I've learnt my lesson. I was just following the drama. Yeah. And admittedly, I did then go on to break the precept about being intoxicated. But my excuse is I didn't know what that one then. So there you go. So that was that. So I was, I obviously had an aptitude for the drama. That's what I think. Right. So that's taking refuge in the Buddha, and that was mainly about. It's all about being interconnectedness, and up until the point I came onto my spiritual path, I wasn't really very. I wasn't aware of this interconnectedness. I was very shut off from it, really. So that's that. So now I'm going to talk about taking refuge in the Dharma. Oh yeah. So I've got a quote. It says, it's all from Reb's book. We value the Dharma more than our limited opinions. Right. So, oh yeah. So now we're getting on to Zen now. So when I first was introduced to the Dharma in Zen, I just thought it was a load of rubbish. I just thought it was a mystery. It was all a mystery to me. And I used to read the books. I used to listen to talks. I used to listen to Ingen. I still do. And I used to think, oh, and Reb, I went to a few Reb's retreats, and I just used to think they're all talking in riddles. I haven't got a clue what they're on about. God knows why I stayed, really, because I just thought, this is just, I don't know what they're on about. So if anyone's quite new to Zen, that's how they feel, then don't worry. It might change. So, yeah, nice. So, now, right. So one of the things that really was like an eye-opener for me, really, about the Dharma, one of the very first things, was impermanence. And it's saying that nothing is constant, nothing's constant. There's no self that is constant, right? So I found this, once I started to understand it, I found it such a relief. It was one of the main things that started me feeling like, oh, maybe this is useful, this practice, right? Because it opened my eyes. Because it made me realise that we only exist in the moment through our interconnections with each other. I think this might be a quote, I'm not sure. Through our interactions with others. So I had a lot of negative internalised opinions about myself and others. So things like that I used to think about myself, like that I was really selfish and lazy and stupid, which were all things that I thought about myself. And then I suddenly realised that they were just words, they were just concepts, and it couldn't be true. It can't be true all the time. Some of these things are true some of the time about me and obviously all of us, but not all the time, not constantly, because we all change in every moment. So that to me, I think that was the thing that really made me think, oh, this is fantastic. Instead of it just all being, oh God, this is such a drag. I started to think, oh, I understand that, and it's quite good. I like it. So that was the first sort of revelation. And then So once I started to accept myself as I was in the moment, I began to relax. And I now have faith in the Dharma and faith that I will continue to learn. And I carry on with joy and optimism and patience and acceptance. But it's been a long journey. You know, it didn't happen overnight. For the first 6 years, I just used to sit on that cushion and think, what am I doing here? Why am I sitting on it? I could be out in that sun. It's a lovely day out there. I could be out there. You know, what am I doing here? But, you know, I don't know. Something kept me. So I started having these realisations. That was one of them. Oh, yes. Now, so that's the Dharma. And now I'm going to start talk about refuge in the Sangha, taking refuge in the Sangha. So, I've got another quote. So when individuals think me first, endless problems and obstacles arise. So this is Reb's book, right? So, this is much more of a quote. When we wake up to the impermanence and egolessness and share the life of this moment, there is no hindrance. Yeah, so when I first started practicing Zen, it was a very selfish practice. I mean, even all these negative stories, which all about me, still all about me. So, it was all about what I got from the practice. So I actually liked the calmness that I felt, sometimes occasionally a little bit on the cushion. And I was also, one big thing that changed from me sitting, it was that I used to have really, really bad back pain. And what I used to find is when I went on long retreats, the back pain got better, not worse. So it made me think, it can't all just be, physical, because I have got a physical problem with my back, and I do have to be careful. But it can't all be physical, because if it was physical, it would get worse the more I sat. But what was happening is it was getting better. And I sort of stopped, because you sit for hours endlessly, you know, I just got to look at my back problem, and I used to think, I used to say to myself, this pain is constant. I can't stand it, it's constant. And then I found out that, it isn't constant. You know, it comes and goes. So anyway, sitting on my cushion, I started to get intimate really with my back pain, and I got to know my back pain. So that was useful. And also, I used to like the lightness that I felt after, when I'd been on a retreat, just even a weekend, I'd go out and I'd feel a lot lighter and a lot happier. So, you know, I liked that. So I thought, it's worth doing, I'm going to carry on because I like that. But it was all about me. You know. And also, I started to see my own patterns of behaviour. Some of this, a lot of this came from the Sangha, from teaching, from having Dokusan, or from talking in the group. I used to see my own behaviours. I used to see that if some upset came up when I was sitting, for example, say if I got upset, then I immediately started coming back up to my head and started thinking about things and distracting myself, you know. And I remember once I remember getting really upset in a Dokusan, and Ingan challenging me and saying, well, you know, you've got a choice with this upset. You can either sit with it, or you can run away and go into town. Well, I chose to run away and go into town. But at least I knew what I was doing. It was a choice. And on different days, as time went on, I chose to sit with it. You know, it was like, you know, you just it started with a acceptance, a recognition. I recognised these feelings. So anyway, so let's see. Yeah, so I realised even the bad memories coming up and the bad feelings coming up were good for me. I realised, but it's all about me. It's still all about me. So, but I don't know how this happened, but over the years, it's changed my. It's not all about me anymore. It was like the more I learned about myself, the more available it became for others. So it wasn't like I said, oh, I read the Dharma and thought, oh, this isn't supposed to be all about me. It wasn't that way round. It was the process changed me, I think. So in the process, I learned more about myself, and then I became more available to others. And I've written here that I noticed others' distress, and these days I notice others' distress and I try to help. Now, most of my career I've spent as a nurse, so I guess I might have been a bit like that before, but I think what's changed is that my capacity to help others has increased because I'm not so disturbed by all my own, my own stuff, about all my own drama from the past. So I've sort of worked through it. So anyways, that's that. And anyway, because I'm supposed to be talking about, the Sangha. Right, now, I could not do this without the Sangha. I actually feel when I'm sitting in a group, I actually physically feel as if I'm being held by the group. The energy of the group holds me. It stops me getting up and doing something else. But it's more than that. It's like an energy, and I think I've read somewhere about trees in the forest and they all sustain each other. Well, it's a bit like that really, and I sort of really feel that. I feel like by sitting in a group, it enables me. So the Sangha enables me to sit really. I couldn't do it without, like I couldn't do this talk without all you lot being here. It's that interconnectedness really, isn't it? So, so anyway, when we all went for lunch today, a few of us went for lunch, this talk, a lot of it's been quite, it's quite personal, but also a lot about the reading, because I do like the reading. But what I was getting from Rebecca and Sammy was, they both said to me different times, you tell good stories about the Sangha, so I thought I'll tell you about the Sangha through the stories, some of the stories. So I sort of ditched, you'll probably be glad to hear, I ditched some of the academic stuff that I've been talking about, just to be able to tell you some of the stories that have changed me through the Sangha. So how I've changed through the Sangha. So let's see. Sangha stories, right? So I've written them down. I've just done a title and I've got to remember it. It's like a game playing myself. So the first one says, I won't tell you what it says, but I know what it's about. So I remember quite early on when I went on a retreat, and I was on a retreat, and on the retreat we all get jobs to do, and someone does the cooking and someone does the bells. We all look after each other, right? But on this particular retreat, I was getting really irritated and angry. And I suddenly got this sort of thought, this flash, that actually this irritation, this anger, can't be to do with anyone around me, because everyone was just serving me. They were all in silence because we were on a silent retreat. So no one was saying anything to upset me. Do you remember this, John? This realisation, I remember telling you about it. And England. No one was doing anything to upset me, but I was upset. I was really upset and I was really angry. And I suddenly realised in the quietness of being on retreat that it was not to do with anything going on. Because one of my patterns was, I'm angry or I'm irritated, and it's all your fault. Someone, it had to be someone else's fault. So I suddenly realised that actually it wasn't anyone's fault. It was just there. The feelings were there. So that to me was a big step up really for me to think, well, it doesn't always have to be because something that's going on outside. Sometimes it's just something that's going on inside. So that was one. And then this one, Reb's retreat, getting tangled in the bushes. So I went on a retreat in Liverpool, actually. We went for a retreat in Liverpool, and and it was Reb Anderson. It was a couple of years ago, and we had a break, and I went for a walk on this break, and the next lesson thing, we had a little walk. We had a bit of time off, and I chose to go for a walk. And the next bit was going to be Reb's talk. But it was a beautiful day. It was like today. It was a really lovely day. And halfway around the walk, I looked at my watch, and I only had 10 minutes to get back for the talk. And I decided I wasn't going to go back for the talk. I was going to carry on with walking. But then a little bit later on, I thought, no, I really want to hear Reb's talk. But I didn't want to be late, because I didn't want the embarrassment of being late and walking in late, the disrespect of walking in late to the teacher. So all these things were going on in my head. I've got to try and get there as quick as I can. And I looked around me, and I decided to go through these bushes to get back, because it'd be a quicker way back to the Zendo. So I got in these bushes, and I couldn't get out. I got stuck in the bushes. And the more I struggled, and the more I struggled, and the more I panicked, the more I was getting caught, and all the clothes were getting caught in the bushes, and I was getting scratched, and everything was getting caught in these bushes. And I was getting really panicky. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get out of these bushes. So I had to stop. I stopped, and I thought, you're going to just have to walk round the path. That's why they built a path. There's no path through these bushes. So I disentangled myself and decided that I was just going to have to be late for the talk, and I was going to take the consequences of this being late instead of killing myself in the bushes. So I did. So I retraced my steps, and I was about 10 minutes late for the talk. And I don't know what I thought was going to happen to me, because all that did happen is Reb said, "Oh, it's nice of you to join us." in it quite
with all the bushes scratching.
And that was about the height of my embarrassment, because I was a bit embarrassed because people looked at me and I had to walk in, and it was disrespectful that I felt to be late. So anyway, so nothing happened. So anyway, why was that relevant? I suppose it was to do with my journey of becoming more myself, really, and sort of so I had to swallow my pride and just take a chance on what was going to happen next, and that's what I did. So that was one. Is it? I haven't any more stories. Let's see. No. I think that would do with the stories. Right. So. Oh yes, yeah, so I think I've written down here what the lesson was for me. It was to make me to be able to be vulnerable and trust others to be kind. That was it. Trust others to be kind with my, dizziness, really. So that was that. And of course, people were kind. Right. Yeah, so one of the Zen sayings that I've come across is that to know oneself is to lose oneself. And the more I'm accepted, warts and all, so this is about that bushes thing really, the more I'm accepted, warts and all, with kindness and patience, the more I'm able to forget myself and serve others. Oh, I have got another story. I've written down here. Right. Have I got time? How long have I got, Ingan?
Just keep going.
Oh, God. Well, this story, right. This story, yeah. I've been on a retreat So we've been on a retreat here, and sitting, and then in the break I went into town, into Hebden, and someone who I knew, jumped out from from a shop doorway and said, "I think you're a effing bitch." This one said to me, this woman. And I went, do you remember this yet? And I went, because I've been sitting, and because I was in this process of accepting myself, warts and all, I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And I just walked past. And I didn't I just said, "Oh." And I had an experience with this woman, which I won't go into really, but I had been a bit unkind to her. So I deserved really in that moment. Perhaps the language was slightly, in my opinion, a little bit over the top. But, I could see a point. But, however, it was in that moment. I wasn't very kind in that moment with this person, and that was the consequences. So I think that was a lesson really, that I was starting to just accept myself. I do make mistakes. We all make mistakes, and sometimes I'll be called bad names really, and I deserve it sometimes, So, but then other times things are different. So, So going now, the other 3 precepts was the three pure precepts. Refrain from harmful conduct, cultivate beneficial conduct, and benefit all beings. Well, I've amalgamated them all into one really, because I guessed I might be running out of time, which I think I am. So, I just want to say a little bit about the form, because in Reb's book, he said, self-centered practice is the source of all evil. Right? And a lot of Zen practice, as a lot of people know, is about form and ceremony. Like ringing the bells, bowing, doing the bows. And a lot of the walking is very precise. A lot of the things we do are very precise. We have to do them in a certain way. And when I first started sitting, and for about the first 5 years, I hated it. I hated all the ceremony. And but anyway, I've learned over the years, and the bells on long retreats, particularly, they actually help, because they help. Because the bells, because when we're on retreat, we're on a silent retreat. The bells are like a language really, because one bell means something, and 2 bells means something else, and 3 bells means something else, and you get to know that language and get to learn the language, and then once you know it, then you don't have to think about what to do on a long retreat, and you don't have to talk to anyone. You can just listen to the bell, and oh, that bell means I've got to walk now. That bell means I've got to get to the zendo and all this. So it just really helps the silence of the retreat, and that's what I've begun to realise. And then also all the rules and the sort of regimentation in a way of it really helps me, shows me, gives me a chance to be present in the moment. Because say if I'm doing the bells, I mean, I've got those stories, but I've only got so much time. But if you're doing the bells, you've got to stay present to know when to ring the bells once you've learned it. And if you start just going into your head and thinking about, what you're having for your tea and blah, 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 then you lose the thread of the job you've been given to do, which is to ring the bells. So it made me notice when I wasn't present. So that's really useful. And the bowing is really, really useful particularly on longer retreats, because it replaces, it makes you feel connected to the Sangha. It makes me feel connected to the Sangha, because we're not talking, because we're in silence. It really is quite like, it really makes me feel like I'm not alone Otherwise, I could feel like I'm just sitting on my cushion all by myself. But the bows make me feel friendly towards everybody, and everyone's being friendly towards me, and it shows that respect. So now I like all the ceremony, most of it anyway. Let's see. Yeah. So that's the opposite to a self-centered practice. Self-centered practice would be maybe like, oh, well, let's all just try and walk around the room any way we like. That'd be a self-centered practice. But the connected practice, where we're all interconnected, is shown through the ceremonies. That's what I found once I've got over my resistance. So that's that. Oh yeah, another thing I've really learned is about rushing in at the last minute. I used to, because the door shuts 5 minutes before we start sitting, and I used to rush around a lot, and I used to rush to places, and through sitting I realised that I'd rush, but when I'd sit, I realised the consequences of that rushing, that my heart would be pounding and I couldn't settle. It would take me ages to settle. So actually closing the door 5 minutes before to enable us to all be on time helps. Well, it helps me. So I like that as well now. So I've come round a bit over the years. So that's that. So really the Sangha has been, I think it's the most important of the Sangha, is the most important bit really for me of the three treasures, the Sangha, the Dharma and the Buddha. Because through the Sangha I've been able to get over my resistances through the kindness of people around me who I've been sitting with, and also my friends outside. They're part of the Sangha as well. It's like, because it sort of spreads out, I think. But I feel like I've been taught with kindness and patience. I think people need a lot of patience, because I had a lot of resistance. And I think it just all points to interdependence, really, that we're all dependent on each other. And it's that interdependence that has kept me with Zen. And I've only got one more thing to say. I want to end with a quote from Suzuki Roshi. Right, and he said, he was saying this about the ceremonies, but I think this is true of the whole practice, right? And he said, what we are doing here is so important that we should not take it too seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you be okay answering a few questions?
Yes, I'll try.
Try and keep it to a very few questions. 3 or 4.
Was the